Ethan Caldwell believed his life was perfectly structured. As the CEO of Caldwell Innovations, a leading medical technology corporation, he devoted nearly every waking moment to his work. With a schedule optimized to the minute, there was no room for surprises or chaos. This morning, Ethan strode briskly through LAX's VIP terminal, answering emails while instructing his assistant on the upcoming meetings in New York. Private jets were his usual mode of travel, but a mechanical issue had forced him onto a commercial flight. First class, of course. Reschedule all morning meetings if necessary. I want the Zurich contract signed before noon tomorrow, he commanded, his voice sharp, his expression unreadable. To Ethan, success was defined by control over his time, his business, and the relationships around him. That was why, 3 years ago, when Sophia had mentioned wanting children, he had shut the idea down immediately. Children were unpredictable, a liability he couldn't afford. Today was no different, just another flight, another day. No surprises. He had no idea that, in just a few minutes, his entire world was about to be turned upside down. Ethan boarded the plane with his usual composure, confident, detached, entirely focused. When the flight attendant greeted him with a practiced smile, he offered only a curt nod before heading toward his seat. But the moment he stepped into the first-class cabin, his world tilted on its axis. In seat 3A, Sophia Bennett sat with 2 young boys beside her. She looked just as striking as he remembered. Soft brown hair framing her face, sharp yet serene eyes. But it wasn't her presence that sent a shock through his system. It was the children. 2 little boys with dark brown hair and stormy gray-blue eyes. His eyes. Ethan froze mid-step, breath catching in his throat. One of them looked up and spoke in a clear, innocent voice. "Mama, can I have my tablet now?" "Mama." The word hit Ethan like a thunderclap, reverberating through his chest. His fingers curled into fists, his heartbeat pounded against his ribs. He felt as if the air had been knocked out of his lungs. Sophia gently handed the child his tablet while the other twin leaned against her shoulder, clutching a well-worn stuffed elephant. They looked around 3 years old. His brain clicked into calculation mode. 3 years ago. The divorce, the timeline, the possibility. No, the certainty. It felt like a punch to the gut. Then, as if sensing his presence, Sophia looked up. Their eyes met, and for a split second, he saw raw panic flash across her face before she quickly looked away, pulling both boys closer. Ethan remained frozen, his mind unraveling in ways it never had before. He had built his empire on control, controlling risks, variables, and outcomes. But this was chaos. Finally, moving on autopilot, he took his seat, directly behind them. For the next 7 hours, Ethan didn't check his emails. He barely noticed the flight at all. All he could hear was the sound of laughter, quiet whispers, and the undeniable truth that shattered every carefully constructed plan he'd ever made. He had children. At exactly 10 a.m., Sophia Bennett stood in the sleek marble lobby of Caldwell Innovations, her heart pounding against her ribs. The security guard scanned her ID, his brows raising slightly as he read her name, Bennett. "Ms. Bennett, Mr. Caldwell is expecting you," he said, handing her a visitor's badge. Sophia clenched her fingers around the strap of her purse as she stepped into the elevator. She had spent the entire night preparing for this conversation. Ethan now knew about Noah and Liam, something she had worked tirelessly to keep from him for 3 years. Once, this building had been part of her life, back when she had been Mrs. Caldwell. Now, it was simply a monument to a world she no longer belonged to. When she entered Ethan's office, he stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to her. The space looked exactly as she remembered, minimalist, powerful, every detail curated to perfection. He turned as the door shut behind her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "Sit down, Sophia." His voice was controlled, but she could hear the strain beneath the surface. She sat, spine straight, bracing herself. "Were you ever going to tell me?" Ethan's voice was rough, anger barely restrained. Sophia inhaled deeply. "I don't know," she admitted. "At first I planned to, but then I saw you on TV. announcing another corporate expansion. You looked so proud. You said it was possible because you had no distractions, no responsibilities. I was 8 weeks pregnant that night. Silence stretched between them. You made that decision for me, Ethan said, his voice dark with unspoken fury. You had no right. Sophia leaned forward, her tone sharp. And you made that decision for me first, Ethan. You told me children were an anchor, a burden. I simply gave you exactly what you wanted. Ethan's jaw tightened, memories crashing down on him like a tidal wave. He had thought he controlled everything. But for the first time in his life, he realized there were things he had lost before he even knew they existed. 6 days later, Ethan stood in the small park near Sophia's home, gripping a paper bag containing 2 plush dinosaurs. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt nervous. Negotiating billion-dollar deals? No problem. Facing down the board of directors? Routine. But meeting his children for the first time? That was unfamiliar territory. He had arrived 45 minutes early, spending the time watching other children play, trying to picture what was about to happen. At exactly 9:55, he spotted Sophia entering the park, holding the hands of 2 small boys, Noah and Liam. They wore matching red jackets, but Ethan could already tell them apart. Noah, brimming with curiosity, skipped ahead eagerly, while Liam clung closer to their mother, his gaze more cautious. Sophia crouched down, whispering something to them. Noah turned to look at Ethan, his storm gray eyes wide. Mama, is this the special person you told us about? Liam studied Ethan for a long moment before nodding quietly. Ethan knelt to their level. Hi, Noah. Hi, Liam. Noah tilted his head, considering. Who are you? Sophia answered gently. Boys, this is Ethan. He's your father. Liam gripped his mother's hand tighter, while Noah blinked up at him thoughtfully. Like Daniel's daddy at school? Ethan cleared his throat, feeling uncharacteristically unsteady. Yes, like that. A brief silence stretched between them. Then Noah suddenly asked, Do you like dinosaurs? Ethan reached into the paper bag and pulled out 2 plush Brachiosaurus toys, one with a blue ribbon, the other with a green one. I do, and I heard you like Brachiosaurus. Liam's eyes widened. Brachiosaurus is the tallest dinosaur. Noah giggled. Liam knows everything about dinosaurs. Sophia smiled slightly, watching the tension in Ethan begin to ease. How about we play a little, she suggested. Noah didn't need to be told twice. He dashed off toward the playground. Liam hesitated, but when his brother waved at him, he slowly followed. Ethan remained standing there, watching his children for the first time, one bursting with energy, the other reserved but observant. And for the first time in years, he wondered, how much had he already missed? 6 weeks later, Ethan was in the middle of a board meeting when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Sophia. He nearly ignored it, but then a message appeared. Noah fell at school. We're at the ER. Call me now. Everything in Ethan's mind went blank. He shot to his feet, ignoring the startled expressions of the board members. This meeting is adjourned. I have an emergency. No explanation, no hesitation. He strode out of the conference room, already dialing his driver. Brooklyn Methodist Hospital, as fast as possible. The 20-minute drive felt like an eternity. Ethan didn't check his emails, didn't respond to messages from the board. His only focus was on Noah, the lively little boy with endless energy, and the fear in Sophia's text. When he arrived, he spotted Madison, Sophia's younger sister, sitting in the waiting area with Liam. The little boy clutched his stuffed elephant, eyes red-rimmed. Daddy! Liam ran to him, gripping Ethan's leg. Noah's really hurt. Ethan scooped him up, holding him close. Where's your mom? Inside with Noah. Madison pointed to the exam room. Without a second thought, Ethan pushed through the door. Sophia stood beside the hospital bed, holding Noah's small hand. The boy lay there, pale, his left arm immobilized. The moment he saw Ethan, his face lit up. Daddy, you came. Ethan rushed to his side. Of course I did. He gently brushed Noah's hair back. What happened? Sophia exhaled. He fell off the slide. His arm's broken, but it's a clean fracture. They're casting it now. Ethan looked at the small arm wrapped in bandages, feeling utterly powerless. For the first time, he understood that fatherhood wasn't just about joyful moments. It was about being there for the painful ones too. Hours later, Ethan sat in the hospital waiting room, the sterile scent of antiseptic filling his senses. Every passing minute dragged on as he replayed the moment Noah had cried out in pain. His hands clenched into fists. This was a different kind of waiting than he was used to. In the boardroom, he was always in control, always making decisions. Here, he could do nothing but sit and hope. Finally, Sophia emerged, exhaustion etched into her features, but her eyes softer than before. "He's going to be fine," she said quietly. Relief crashed over Ethan like a wave, but the weight in his chest didn't lift completely. For the first time, he realized this was what it meant to truly be there for someone. And above all, never being absent when his child needed him the most. That evening, Ethan didn't return to the office. He sat on Sophia's couch, Noah resting his head on his lap, his small hand clutching a stuffed dinosaur. His newly casted arm was now decorated with cute stickers, while Liam sat beside him, carefully adding his own scribbles with a marker. "Daddy, are you really busy?" Noah asked sleepily. Ethan glanced at Sophia before looking down at his son. "Not as busy as you. You did great today." Noah smiled drowsily and closed his eyes. Sophia stood, motioning for Ethan to follow her into the kitchen. "You skipped a major meeting today." Her voice held no judgment, only observation. Ethan folded his arms. It wasn't more important than being here with Noah. Sophia studied him for a moment before nodding. "You've changed." A long silence stretched between them. "I lost 3 years not knowing they existed," Ethan murmured, his throat tightening. The weight of that realization pressed down on him like an unbearable burden. His voice wavered for the first time in years. "I won't lose another second." The next morning, back in his office, Ethan stared at his calendar. Then, he called his assistant in and said simply, "Cancel all Saturday morning meetings. From now on, my Saturdays belong to my kids." And he meant it. The following weeks became a crash course in fatherhood. Saturday mornings at the park, bedtime stories filled with dinosaur facts, and the quiet moments when Liam would hesitantly reach for his hand. The transition wasn't easy. Noah was quick to accept him, but Liam was more cautious, watching, waiting. Yet, little by little, Ethan saw the walls between them crumble. The first time Liam voluntarily climbed into his lap during story time, Ethan knew he was no longer just the man from the plane. He was their father. By the time their 4th birthday approached, he wanted to give them something special, something that showed them and Sophia that he wasn't going anywhere. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Family would always come first. 3 months later, Ethan stood inside the Natural History Museum, watching his son stare in awe at the towering T-Rex skeleton. Today was Noah and Liam's 4th birthday, and he had spent weeks planning the perfect celebration. "Daddy, is this real?" Liam asked, eyes wide. Ethan crouched down, smiling. 100% real. And I invited a real paleontologist to tell you all about it." Noah cheered while Liam gripped Ethan's hand, a small gesture that tightened something deep in his chest. At the party, the boys unwrapped their presents and pulled out 2 carefully drawn pictures. One showed 4 figures standing in front of a skyscraper. The other, 4 figures inside a warm, cozy house. "See, Daddy?" Noah said. "It's our family." Ethan looked at Sophia, and in that moment, he understood what family truly meant. After the party, he led Sophia and the twins to a new house he had bought near their school. "I want to be close to them, close to you." Sophia was silent for a long moment before she whispered, "Let's take this one step at a time." Ethan nodded. He knew this wasn't just a choice. It was a promise, a father's promise. That night, freshly bathed and dressed in pajamas, Noah and Liam climbed into bed, each clutching their plush dinosaurs. Ethan sat between them, holding the book they had chosen. "Daddy, Will you read to us every night?" Liam asked softly. Ethan glanced at Sophia, who stood by the doorway, watching them. Then he turned back to his sons and smiled. "Every night, if you want me to." Noah cheered, while Liam simply nodded, his eyes glowing with quiet hope. Sophia stepped forward, pulling the blankets up around the boys. She paused, looking at Ethan. "We're doing this right," she murmured. Ethan reached for her hand, gentle but firm. "I'm not going anywhere." She didn't answer right away, but when Noah turned to ask, "Daddy, are you staying forever?" she met Ethan's gaze, and together they answered, "Yes, forever." And there, in a cozy Brooklyn home beneath the warmth of a soft bedroom light, a family was rebuilt. Not as they once were, but as they were always meant to be. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, Ethan knelt in the living room, watching as his 2 sons whispered conspiratorially. "Do you think we can do it?" Noah asked Liam, eyes twinkling with excitement. Liam nodded seriously. "Just remember, you have to say, 'Mommy, marry Daddy.'" Ethan chuckled, adjusting their tiny collars. "Ready, boys?" Both nodded eagerly before dashing into the kitchen, where Sophia was making tea. "Mommy?" Noah tugged at her hand. "We have a very important question." Sophia turned, raising an eyebrow. "What is it, sweetheart?" Liam took a deep breath, then said solemnly, "Mommy, marry Daddy." Before Sophia could respond, Ethan stepped forward, dropping to one knee, a simple yet elegant ring in his hand. Ethan took a steadying breath, his hands tightening around the small velvet box. "I lost you once," he said, his voice raw with emotion. "And in those years, I learned what truly matters. Not boardrooms, not billion-dollar deals, you, our boys, our family." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "Sophia, will you give me the chance to do this right? To love you the way you deserve? Will you marry me? Again?" Sophia looked at him, then at their 2 sons, her eyes shimmering with happy tears. "Yes!" The boys shrieked in excitement, jumping up and down as Ethan slipped the ring onto Sophia's finger. Noah tugged at his sleeve, eyes wide with curiosity. "So does this mean we get to have a wedding?" Sophia laughed, wiping away a tear. "Yes, sweetheart, but something small, just family." And so, over the next few weeks, preparations began. Not for a grand, extravagant affair, but for something that felt right. A quiet ceremony in their backyard, surrounded by the people who truly mattered. Every night as they planned, Ethan found himself marveling at how different this was from their first wedding. This time, there were no cold, corporate guest lists, no pressure to impress, just them, their sons, and the promise of a fresh start. The boys cheered, throwing their arms around their parents. Ethan smiled, pulling Sophia into his arms. This time, he knew for certain it was forever. 2 months later, on a gentle spring afternoon, Ethan and Sophia stood in the small garden behind their home, hand in hand, surrounded by the people who mattered most. No extravagant wedding, no hundreds of guests, just family, close friends, and the 2 most important participants, Noah as the ring bearer, Liam as the flower keeper. As Sophia stepped outside in a simple white dress, Noah tugged at his father's hand. "Daddy, Mommy looks so pretty." Ethan smiled, eyes locked on her. "I know." The ceremony was intimate, filled with warmth and love. When the officiant asked, "Ethan, do you promise to love and cherish Sophia this time and forever?" Ethan held her hand tighter, his voice steady. "I do, forever." When Sophia whispered, "I do," Liam giggled. "Now kiss." Laughter filled the air as Ethan pulled Sophia into a soft kiss, surrounded by applause and cheers from their family. Noah and Liam ran forward, wrapping their little arms around their parents. This time they weren't just a couple. They were a family. And this was the beginning of their happily ever after.